Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Flex podcast presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Samantha Previte. As always, we will be answering your mailbag questions every Thursday on this podcast, which you can submit for future shows to mailbag@actionnetwork.com. Please stop sliding into my DMs and please send me emails. So as always, I'm excited to be joined by Brandon Anderson, who is my colleague here at the Action Network, who covers NFL and NBA, and you can find him on Twitter at Wheaton Brando. Brandon, do I even dare ask how your week 9 was?
You know, my week 9 was not great. From a betting standpoint, I got smashed this weekend. All of those upsets, yeah, they were upsetting. They were very upsetting to my bank account. Somehow, all of the games that I was not certain about, I got right. So I ended up with a winning record for the week, but not so much on the ROI. So
Sure.
Yeah, very upsetting week for many of us. Very upsetting week to be a Vikings fan, but you know, I just call those just weeks. That's just how life goes.
I'm so sorry about the Vikings loss. That was definitely painful. You know, like you just saw it kind of coming and you were like, I see the writing on the wall. I've seen this movie 800 times.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the worst part about it is that I saw it coming before the game. So I bet on the Ravens because I thought the Ravens were going to win and blow them out. And then they pretty much did late in the game. But I got the worst of both worlds. The Vikings lost and covered and I didn't get my bet anyway. So it's never good to bet on or against your team. It just doesn't work out for you. How did your week 9 go?
I actually feel the same way. Like I can't get Panthers bets right. And a lot of times I hedge emotionally because I'm like, oh, at least I'll have something to root for if they start losing. Anyway, this was obviously a disappointing week. Let's just call it that, to be a Panthers fan. DJ Moore managers, very disappointed as well. Christian McCaffrey's return was meh, so for fantasy. So, and then now Sam Darnold, like, I don't know, who knows who the quarterback is going to be? Is it going to be PJ Walker? Is it going to be Matt Barkley? Is it going to be some guy that they pick up off the streets? I don't know, but it's all contributing to the pain as a Panthers fan.
How would you feel about what if they just announced Matt Rule comes out press conference and says, okay, I got news. Christian McCaffrey is starting at quarterback. We're just going to run a wildcat and just let him run or pass whatever he wants. He's the offense anyway. We're just putting Christian under center. What do you think?
I am not convinced the game would go any differently than if Sam Darnold were under center. I have lost.
That's the thing. Like Darnold is so bad that, like, honestly, can PJ Walker be any worse? Like, as handicapping against that game, I was like, if Darnold's out, I think I like Carolina better. Like, we know for sure Darnold is terrible. Walker, he's had his moments in other leagues. Why not?
Yes, XFL star PJ Walker. I am actually excited. You know what? They could eke out a win because, it's just one of those situations where it's a quarterback that they don't know. It's like Gardner Minshew that came out of nowhere and then Gardner Minshew picks up wins. So like, I'm not necessarily saying that Gardner Minshew and PJ Walker are the same, but the theory is the same, that maybe some guys that they don't have enough tape on, they can sort of, eke out a win, but we shall see. It has been a painful season and I am looking forward to 2022. Matt Rule just said he's like not ruling out exploring all options. And I was like, why didn't you explore Justin Fields as an option in the draft?
A good option.
So
are you excited to watch PJ Walker possibly play Colt McCoy this weekend? Are you planning your entire weekend around that showdown?
Yes. So my mother is in town actually this weekend, and I feel like I'm just gonna use that as an excuse to maybe not watch the whole game because cool, I guess. It's football. I'm excited that there's football at any given time and maybe play some fun props or something to make the game sort of interesting. I do think the Cardinals are, even with Colt McCoy, are gonna kill my Panthers. So probably won't be a fun.
Arizona's a double-digit favorite, even though we don't know who's playing quarterback yet. So I feel like that's kind of all you need to know.
Hey, wait. All the double-digit dogs though last week. Like,
yeah, well, that's true.
Can lightning strike twice?
Lightning struck 5 times already. So if lightning keeps striking 5 times every weekend, then maybe PJ Walker will get the win. Here's what I want to know though: if your mom is in town, Is she our surprise 21 questions guest this week? Do we get 21 questions with Samantha's mom?
Sadly, no. And my mother, I'll just say she's a saint, but has no idea anything about football. Still doesn't know what I do for work. Every single time I feel like I talk on the phone, she's always like, "Okay, hold on, just explain it to me really slowly." What is it that you do every day? And I'm like, I don't really know. I go on podcasts with cool people like yourself, and I write things about a fake sport. So yeah, she's definitely really proud of me. She's a boomer, so she really like definitely embraces this very weird path in life, and is so happy that she paid for a pre-med degree so I could do this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, I mean, if you couldn't be like a doctor or a lawyer, I mean, I'm assuming fantasy football analyst was probably next in line.
Yeah, absolutely. That was for sure their second choice, but I guess in the words of Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. Anyway, let us jump into my favorite segment so far, which is our play hold drop, or FMK sort of analog. We will put our professor caps on and talk about 3 players at each position that are kind of on that fringe or just in the same category, the icky category, the frozen pond category. So Brandon, hit me with some names.
Yeah, I mean, this is the segment to tell your mom about. Just let her know, Mom, every Thursday I'm working on getting my PhD. I feel like that would make a mom very proud. Like both of us should tell our parents we're 8 weeks in so far in getting our PhD. Every Thursday, work very hard on it. So I think it's a good way to go.
I love it.
All right, so let's start with quarterback. Near and dear to my heart, 2 of these guys. Kirk Cousins, my Kirk Cousins, playing the Chargers this week. My guy, Carson Wentz, North Dakota State playing the Jags, and then Derek Carr against the Chiefs. What do you think about those 3? Definitely very icky.
Definitely very icky, kind of icky for different reasons. I would say Carr obviously has the best matchup. The Chiefs are the second worst team against fantasy quarterbacks, and you don't need stats to see how bad they've looked against the pass. Carson Wentz definitely has a good matchup, and he's been really, really strong since week 5. He's just a guy that I feel like even I overlook constantly because he's on the Colts and he's Carson Wentz. And then Kirk Cousins, a guy who has been actually pretty consistent in the right matchups for fantasy. I don't think this is the right matchup, though, against the Chargers. So I am going to say Carson Wentz is the play for me, even though I think the Chiefs defense situation is a better opponent. I would just say, obviously, they had a pretty soft matchup last week, and I think some off-field drama has maybe impacted their offense. Maybe the loss of Henry Ruggs is just something that they are trying to cope with and whatnot. So I don't know if that's going to bleed into week 10. And I do want to hang on to Derek Carr because I think they have a pretty soft schedule down the line. So I'm going to say play Wentz, hold Carr, and drop Cousins, because I think Cousins is a guy that you could probably drop and he might not get picked up. So like you could probably get him again if you just don't need him this week.
Yeah, if you are a glutton for punishment, you can get Kirk Cousins all the times that you need to. I'm with you. I agree on all 3 of your choices. And just so that I get to say it out loud, cut Kirk Cousins. Get rid of him. No more Kirk Cousins. I like that. Get him out of your life. Carson Wentz, I actually didn't realize his numbers were as good as they have been. He's had multiple touchdowns 6 games in a row. He's had 3 touchdowns each of the last 3 games. And Jacksonville actually is one of the worst pass defense in the league too. So Kansas City's defense has played a little better. I'm not exactly worried about them. I actually really like the Raiders in that game. I think it's a good spot for them. But to me, Carr is very steady. He's had 2 touchdowns in 6 of the 8 games, but never over that. So I think Carr is like the safe option. So you keep him around, play him if there's not a better matchup. I think Wentz is maybe a little higher upside. So I agree. Play Wentz, hold Carr, cut Kirk Cousins, get him out of here. All right.
Like that.
Up next. I like that. I like that so much. All right. Up next, another guy near and dear to my heart. My guy, Adrian Peterson, playing his old team. No, not my Vikings, the Saints. And then we've got Devontae Freeman and Alex Collins. Samantha, you sent me this list beforehand. I am shocked, appalled, and offended that you would put Adrian Peterson with these other 2 turds of a running back. So tell me why Adrian is not the obvious play here.
First of all, I just want to say that I meant to change Alex Collins to Antonio Gibson, but we'll just leave him in here. We'll just keep going. And on Adrian Peterson, by the way, I was just watching the league again. Like I literally started it from the very beginning, and the part where they're like talking to a defendant and trading the number one spot so they could draft Adrian Peterson. It definitely brought me back because I was like, this is not the AP that we know. So anyway, I mean, AP obviously found the end zone last week on 2.1 yards per carry. Donta Foreman, I think, outplayed Peterson and Jeremy McNichols. And I mean, I just think this backfield is largely unappealing. And I don't want to be like, I called this, but I feel like I said that this Derrick Henry-less backfield was just going to be kind of a cluster that I didn't want any part of. I did pick up Peterson in spots where I was desperate, but I'm just like not excited about Peterson. And they are in a brutal matchup against the Saints, allowing a league low 73.8 rushing yards per game. So I think also his just like one-dimensional rushing style is just a bad match for the Saints. So we just saw them shut down Mike Davis, but like I could shut down Mike Davis. So he is the drop for me, I think. Though, did I just see that today that they activated Chris Carson or designated Chris Carson for return?
Yeah, I think I don't know if he's activated. He looks like he's on his way to return. I saw some similar update. Yeah. So.
Okay, so I'm calling an audible here. Obviously, I told you I like prepared my own notes with Antonio Gibson. Sorry, guys.
Let's do Gibson.
Okay. So I would say I would hold Gibson. You can't start him against the Buccaneers, and you can't start him with what we saw before the bye. I hope the bye came at a good time for him to sort of get a little healthier. He's averaging like 10 fantasy points per game in half PPR. I just mentioned it's a brutal matchup against the Bucs. I just don't feel comfortable playing him without kind of seeing the workload. I think like we've seen teams have success against the Bucs when they kind of abandon the run. So I think if they're smart, they might do that. And then I would play Devonta Foreman. Obviously, this is contingent on Latavius Murray sitting out another game, but he definitely looks like the guy. 13 carries for 79 yards and scored a touchdown last week. The Ravens are obviously a very run-heavy team, though much of that is obviously Lamar Jackson. But they are facing the Dolphins this week, who have been very permeable against the run.
All right. You convinced me to actually like listen to the argument, but you did not convince me to cut Adrian Peterson. So yeah, I agree. The Tennessee's running back situation is not going to be great, but Peterson, I think, it's Adrian Peterson. Like, come on, they're not going to give Donta Foreman the carries ahead of him. I know he was good for a couple of carries. Peterson, old man AP, just fell into the end zone. That's why I like him. He's going to keep doing that because the Titans like to run when they get near the end zone. They're playing really well. They're going to keep scoring touchdowns. It's not a great matchup, but, the guy plays with a chip on his shoulder. I think that he's going to get a decent shot at getting a touchdown. Just that extra little push that he needs, even in a tough matchup. To me, Peterson and Devonta Freeman are pretty similar spots of just like, all right, it's not 2012 anymore. So what are we doing with these guys still? And Baltimore's situation is definitely better. I was thinking, Baltimore's EPA, expected points added by rushing, is number one in the league by like a huge margin over the last 4 weeks. And they're like 50% higher than number two, and they're triple all but the top four. Like they're crushing everyone in rushing attack. And I was like, oh, wow, Baltimore is back. Look at their running offense. And then I looked at their individual stats. Yes, just Lamar Jackson. Lamar is just a god running over everyone. And every now and then he's like, oh, hey, I got running back still. This is my sixth string over here. Freeman, here you go. Run for 4 yards. Okay, my turn again. So I don't know. Devonta had a nice line this week, but what did he have? Like a couple carries the week before and like 9 the week before that. And we've said his name so many times as a Baltimore running back. He's like about to tear his ACL just hearing us talk about him right now. So, I mean, sorry about it, but let's be real.
I know. I feel so bad.
Yeah, Gibson is the hold to me. Peterson, Freeman, I think, has a slightly better play this week. Thursday night, if you just are focusing only on this week, I guess I would probably play Freeman if it's like a DFS choice. if it's who I have to actually get rid of, Freeman is my easy cut out of those. Gibson, Alex Collins, get him out of here. Like he's gone. He's out of the question. But I'm going to keep Peterson. So I'm going to stay true. I'm going to play Adrian Peterson and hold on to Gibson and cut Devontae Freeman. So we'll see how our ancient octogenarian running backs do this week against each other. All right.
Hilarious.
Let's go to some stinky receivers. So Michael Gallup, Tim Patrick, and Marquez Callaway. So my first question is this. I did not see an update on Michael Gallup. Is he back in the mix now? Is he healthy? What have you seen about him?
As of yesterday, he was due to return to practice after spending all but 1 week on injured reserve with a calf injury. So obviously this stuff is going to be contingent on if he actually plays this game, but I want to operate under the assumption that he is going to play. He is a guy that I actually really feel like is just an underrated guy, but he might just be one of those people that I just like can't cut bait with like mentally. But in 2019, he had an 1,100 receiving yard campaign. Cowboys have a really great matchup against the Falcons this week. This game has the highest point total of the entire week at 55. So I think there's going to be a lot of scoring. Obviously, there are downsides to him. He's going to be probably the fifth option at best in this offense behind CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Dalton Schultz, Ezekiel Elliott, possibly even Tony Pollard. Like, I don't know where he ends up falling in this hierarchy, but I mean, I think that he has the most upside of the three. Okay, so I'm holding on to Tim Patrick. He's another guy. I don't know that I can't quit. I think he's like, if he had a spicier name, he would be more rostered, but he doesn't. And he's coming off the best.
What I was gonna say. He's got two first names. I think you like the two first names. Is that what's keeping him around for you? Tim Patrick. What if he was Patrick Tim? Would you still like him?
Patrick Tim. I mean, he just sounds like an accountant, like your parents' CPA, but like at the same time, I think that he's always underrated. His rostership is always really, really low. I think in relation to like how valuable he is to the team. Caught 4 or 5 targets last week for 85 yards and a touchdown. I think it's encouraging to see that his targets haven't completely fallen off a cliff with Jerry Jeudy back. That said, they're getting Noah Fant back. So I would like to see how this offense kind of shakes out with all their weapons healthy. So I want to hold on to him. And then I think I'm going to drop Marquez Callaway. I think like he has the best matchup of the three, and it's going to be really hard to drop him. Also, he's coming off of a good game, caught a touchdown. The targets have kind of been steady, but the quarterback play has not. And I just have kind of limited faith in a passing attack led by Trevor Siemian or even Taysom Hill if it comes to that. So he's just one of those like boomer bust guys that like may find the end zone every 3 weeks. And that's cool, but I just think it's kind of low upside for me. So I am okay with cutting bait with him.
Yeah, this is a rough trio. I'm okay with cutting bait on any of these three guys if you need the roster spot. I'm not sure that any of them are really must holds. I didn't know Michael Gallup was back and ready to go or soon to be ready to go. So I think of the three, I'm definitely not cutting Michael Gallup of those choices. I will say too, so I didn't realize, I forgot what his injury was. So Michael Gallup has a calf injury. Dak Prescott, also calf injury, I think. So what's with all these calves? It's the Cowboys. Of all teams, shouldn't the Cowboys be better with calves, right? All right, I'll be
Oh my God, dad joke.
I'm gonna keep that Michael Gallup. I don't think you can play him when we haven't seen him play for so long. So I guess he goes in the hold spot for me. I'm not into Tim Patrick. I guess I don't really have a thing for accountants. So he seems like he's like the fourth option to me on Denver with their guys back. And it's not exactly a team I'm looking to go deep into their options. I don't know what the options are for the Saints. Marquez Callaway has 26 targets the last 4 games. From who? I don't know. Whoever happens to be throwing him the ball. Maybe he'll be the guy that throws the ball. I don't know. Like Michael Thomas isn't there. It doesn't look like he's back this season. So I just feel like there's upside possibly there. Their passing game has actually been relatively efficient considering the mess of everything that they're working with. So I guess that means I'm starting Marcus Callaway and cutting Tim Patrick and holding Michael Gallup. So that's happened.
I mean, I wanted to put a whole tier together of guys that are similar. So yeah, it of course makes these decisions a little harder. I think like it stinks if you're in a situation where you have to start one of these guys, but you don't know, could be like a 20 team league, a 16 team league. I have 16 team leagues where I have to start Tim Patrick sometimes. So
It happens, you know,
it happens.
bye weeks happen, injuries happen. This is fantasy football. Like the worst part of the fantasy football, the word fantasy being part of it, like this is not a fantasy. We have to start one of these loser receivers that nobody cares about. Like Tim Patrick's grandma is not rostering Tim Patrick to start him this week. And this is a grandmother's podcast. Like this should be like nightmare football should be the name for it. Fantasy football, nobody's fantasy is starting Michael Gallup, Tim Patrick, and Marquez Callaway.
You know what? Tim Patrick is going to pop off for 2 touchdowns this week, and you're going to eat your words. So anyway, let's move on to tight ends.
All right, so I don't mind these 3 tight end options. We've got Dan Arnold, Tyler Higbee, and Hunter Henry. Not terrible. What did you think about these 3?
I think this is going to be a spicy one. I'm going to say play Arnold, hold Henry, and drop Tyler Higbee. And I know dropping Tyler Higbee is going to be difficult. He also saw 10 targets last week in the Rams' kind of shocking loss and had a very close touchdown called back, like his toe touched a blade of grass. Like it was so close. Every single time I watched it, I was like, oh, he's in. Oh, he's not. He's in. He's out. Anyway, obviously would have changed his fantasy day, but he's only scored double-digit fantasy points in half PPR once all year, and that was in week 3. I just think he's kind of far down on Matt Stafford's priority list, and he just is a touchdown-dependent guy. So I can't play him this week against the 49ers, who are allowing the 9th fewest fantasy points to tight ends, and then they have a week 11 bye. So that is where I am with Higbee. I know that would probably be the hardest one for people to cut, though, because of the talent and the previous production. Henry, on the other hand, I want to hang on to because I want to see if the targets go up. He has actually scored a ton recently, 5 touchdowns in the last 6 games, but he's getting like 3 targets per game over the last 4 weeks. So it's difficult because like the production's there, but the volume's not. And it's in the Patriots offense who they're relying on their defense to keep these games really, really low scoring. And the passing attack's just not there. Like if Mac Jones passes for 200 yards this week, I'll be surprised. So I want to hold on to him to see kind of if that role gets a little bigger. And then Arnold, he did really well last week. I mean, not really well, but well, considering he played the Bills, caught 4 of 7 targets for 60 yards, now has at least 7 targets in 3 of the last 4 games. He gets a much easier matchup against the Colts this week. They're very permeable against the pass and are allowing the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends. Obviously, the Jaguars offense is the worst of the 3, and that is something that I want to look for. Or actually, no, I don't know if that's obvious that they're worse than the Patriots, but they're down there.
Wow, ouch. Shots fired at Bill Belichick. Bill listens to this podcast, you know.
But his targets and production just make him, and the matchup makes him an attractive borderline top 12 play. And sorry to Bill Belichick's grandmother who's watching this podcast.
Bill Belichick's grandmother is not listening to this podcast. I have very sad news to tell you about Bill Belichick's grandmother. She has visited a farm long ago, I think. I had to say, I can't help but notice here on our tight ends, Dan Arnold, Hunter Henry, more double first name people. You are really into these like accountant, like, let me ask you this. Would you rather start Arnold Dan or Henry Hunter if they were options?
I don't know. I don't know that it matters because it's interchangeable. This is like a palindrome. So no opinion there.
Henry Hunter is a blocking tight end. Henry Hunter is like just jack, like down. He's like a 6th lineman. You don't want to be starting Henry Hunter unless you get like points per pancakes. And he's very good in those leagues. I've played in a fantasy league before with offensive linemen where you got points for pancake blocks. That is a thing that I did with my life.
I like that.
I did not like that.
Okay, wait. No, that sounds fun. I have played in this IDP league for a while, and I think that is so much fun. So I think that adding in a different dimension of offensive linemen could be interesting. But I guess you don't share that sentiment.
I mean, I'm all for adding dimensions. I've played in a league with punters before. One of my favorite rules is where you have to start a rookie, a non-quarterback rookie, like any running back, receiver, tight end slot. So I like mixing it up. Offensive line was a little too far for me. Like there's just not enough numbers there. But back to our tight ends, I agree. Dan Arnold is the play. You had all the good stats. It's a good matchup. The Colts have not been good against tight ends. They're probably going to be, the Jags should be behind most of the game too, so that helps. I was going to keep Tyler Higbee and then ditch Hunter Henry. You sold me. Higbee, not really all that exciting. He's getting catches, but not scores. And you sold me with the bye week thing too. I'm not exactly about keeping extra tight ends around if I don't need them. Henry, I didn't realize his scoring was so high. Like you said, 5 touchdowns in the last 6 weeks. So Johnny Smith, I think, is questionable as well. So that possibly could open up some targets. So sure, let's keep Henry Hunter and Hunter Henry around and see what happens with them. But
start Arnold Dan.
Yeah, Arnold Dan, he's out of here. No, Arnold Dan stays. That's right.
Yes.
Tyler, he's gone. All right. No more backward name tight end. Should we get to the mailbag?
Absolutely. And we have a lot of good questions.
We do. We got great questions today. Thank you, listeners. All right. First one from Kevin. This might be my favorite one too. We started with a doozy here. So Kevin has a trade. Kevin can trade Adrian Peterson, Jamar Chase, and Darnell Mooney for Saquon Barkley and Terry McLaurin. So here's the roster right now. His running backs are Peterson, Darrell Henderson, Khalil Herbert, Tony Pollard, AJ Dillon, and his receiver is much stronger. He's got Chase and Mooney, obviously, and then Devonta Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, and Rashad Bateman. So back to the trade. Peterson, Chase, and Mooney for Saquon and Scary Terry. What do you think about this deal?
I love trying to like parse through these mega deals because this is honestly, in terms of like trade philosophy, where you can actually get a lot of value, I think, from people. 1-for-1 trades you really can't, because like you can just look at a ranking sheet and any person can figure out if that's a fair trade or not a fair trade. But stuff like this definitely muddies the water. I like the fact that you're getting 2 for 3. Idea being that you are upgrading your offense, your team. Darnell Mooney feels like a sell high for me this moment, and I'm okay, obviously, with you having just Devonta Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, and Terry McLaurin as your top receivers plus a flex. Peterson, we already talked about. He's like waiver wire fodder to me, so I have no issues with you offloading him in that trade. However, I do have concerns about Barkley long term. I think you have the right idea, but I think you could aim higher than Barkley plus McLaurin. Like I like that package, but I like the package that you're offering, but I think you might be able to do a little better. Just my opinion.
So I kind of agree with you, but I have a different twist on what I would do with it. So I love the trade. I would definitely accept this trade. I agree with the Saquon Barkley concerns. I've never been a big Saquon fan. He was on my do not draft list, but he's clearly like a sexy name in fantasy football circles, and he should be back playing soon. So I'm a serial trader. I just trade and trade again. And I am not afraid to trade for something that I don't want if I think someone else does want it. So I love this trade. Darnell Mooney, Adrian Peterson, Jamar Chase, all 3 of them seem like possible sell highs. Mooney, like you said, it's a 3 for 2. This is a 2 for 2. Mooney is not super relevant, especially on this team. Like he has like 700 receivers better than Darnell Mooney. So I don't worry about that. Peterson, he's fine. He's a name to sell high on. Like right now is probably his best value, while people are like, but he's replacing Derek Henry. He's not. He might be fine. On this team, like we need running backs on this team. So I wouldn't be cutting Adrian Peterson, but he's a sell high. Chase, not necessarily a sell high, but he really can't get any better than he's been. Like he could lose value. He can't really gain value. So it makes sense to trade those guys. Terry McLaurin, I like a lot. He's a buy low, so he's a good option. Saquon Barkley is a huge buy low. I think I agree with you. I don't buy what he's selling us, Saquon, but I think that I would do this deal the thing this team needs. So you're downgrading receiver, like you said, you still have Devontae and Diggs and CeeDee Lamb. So, McLaurin might be very good. He could almost be as good as Chase down the stretch. We don't really know, probably not, but we'll see. But you need something at running back, and Peterson's not something. Peterson is a nibble. Peterson's just a little nibble. He's like put something in the lineup. Saquon Barkley.
So sorry to Adrian Peterson's grandmother that's listening to this.
We're sorry about that. I've said a lot of good things about Adrian, but like Barkley, if Barkley is good, like really good, like he can be, this team, like that move could send this team to a title run. If he's not good, it could be still a move that sends this team to a title run, because now you trade Saquon Barkley for like, don't you agree, if you get Barkley, even if you don't want him, can't you trade him for all but like 7 or 8 other running backs in the league? Like, I look at Barkley, I'm like, if I don't want that name, I can pick almost all the other running back names. Don't you think that he's that valuable, or am I thinking too highly of him?
I am not sure, just given the injury history at this point, and at least I am not optimistic about the Giants, and I think the wheels could be coming off this season and them not really wanting to stress him. I think we'll see him again this season, but there's a good chance that he never sees 20 carries again. So I think that is a little concerning for me, because why would they put that kind of workload on him in a losing season? So I guess those are kind of like my concerns, but I do like your point that like, even if you don't want Barkley, someone might. So definitely makes more sense in that context. So I would say this is a good trade and you should accept it.
All right, let's go to Kenzie. Kenzie says, "Hi, Samantha. I was cruising with Derek Henry and just barely eked out a win with 55 points. Boy, that is a nice Sunday if you get a win with 55 points. Kenzie wants to know, what can I do to save my season? I'm still second in the league for now. Thank you."
Kudos for staying afloat, being second without King Henry, and somehow putting up the W with 55 points. I know it was a brutal week, so glad that worked out for you, because in a lot of my leagues it did not. I mean, to save your season, there's a lot of things you should be doing. You need to stay diligent on the waiver wire. Of course, there are always going to be, especially like running back type guys in the rough, like diamonds in the rough, that can give you RB2 or RB1 production in certain weeks. We've seen it with Chuba Hubbard. We've seen it with Khalil Herbert, when some guy comes down, and it's maybe not a season long thing, but like we're in week 10 right now. You may only need like 1 or 2 weeks out of a guy. And, guys like Brandon Ayuk may have gotten dropped in your leagues. He was 52% rostered going into this waiver cycle. I assume he's probably closer to like 75% at this point, but guys like that get dropped. So like Clyde Edwards-Helaire was on one of my waiver wires. And I did not win the bid, which I was really, really bummed about. But like stuff like that happens. I know maybe not in like super sharp leagues, but like stuff like that happens. You got to be really diligent on that. And like, obviously, we're very pro trade. I think you probably need to make some trades. Without knowing your roster, I'm going to assume you are now lean at running back. I don't think that's a crazy jump. So perhaps you could package like a second RB plus a wide receiver for a mid to low end RB1. Guys like Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb. Like Nick Chubb might be a good buy right now. Darrell Henderson, DeAndre Swift, like that kind of range of guys, I think you could target. So I would probably try to think about that, scope out who is rostering those guys to your league, and send out some trade offers. If you are not comfortable just like sending blind offers though, because I don't really do that either. And if you know the people in your league, I would actually suggest like just sending them a message and saying, hey, what would you possibly want from my roster for Nick Chubb? And you're kind of letting them metaphorically open the kimono first. Maybe he's off the table, but I think it's important to try. And remember, don't act desperate, because they'll know since you were the Henry manager or possibly have him in your IR spot or whatever, they may try to lowball you. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that's good. Definitely, that's a spot to look around for trades. I will say, as like I said, a serial trader. That's TRADER, not a traitor. I'm not a serial traitor. But one thing I would disagree with, I would prefer that you do make the first offer, because like this is a negotiation. However, it depends on what you think of this person you're trading with. if you are negotiating a salary, you always want to let the other people make the first offer because like you don't want to set the bar too low. In this case, I think you want to do the opposite because if somebody comes to me here, what you just told me of like you send the email or the message saying, hey, I would like Nick Chubb. What's the offer? What would you take? I interpret that as weakness. And I'm like, okay, I have the whole table open before me. You just put your cards on the table and told me what you want. And now I know I can really charge your premium for it. So I would rather keep my cards close to the vest a little bit. I'm going to make the first offer. And I'm not going to lowball either necessarily. Depends on how close of a friend I am to this person in the league. I might just put a little poke in my email too. But I want to set the bar a little low. If I let them make the offer, they might come back for me, my top 3 guys. And now any other counter I have is going to look terrible compared to where they started. So I would rather start with the other offer and then knowing I'm going to probably have to increase because, it's about perception and like setting what you're comparing to. So that's how I like to do trades. I agree though, for Kenzie, making trades, looking around, this is the rare spot where you might do a 1-for-2 trade. I almost never do that kind of deal. I rather get the one. But when you lost Derek Henry, this is, when you lost the king of fantasy football and you have to replace him, you probably need multiple people. So it is a spot for that. If it's a keeper or dynasty league, you need to make a choice of, okay, is this team worth investing in? If it's not, this might be a time to sell some of your guys off and be like, all right, well, Henry's out. He'll be back next year. Let's sell and, help my team for the future. If it is, and same thing, even if it's just a regular, like a standard league, keep an eye on those people who are either desperately fighting for the playoffs and need a win badly. Kenzie says that she's in second place. So you probably don't need to desperately get the win this week. So you can prey on the people who are more desperate, either because their guy is hurt right now. Like you said, Nick Chubb, that's a great one. What if Nick Chubb misses this week and this guy's in 8th place fighting for his playoff lives and he can't afford another loss? Nick Chubb is a great target to be like, hey, here's some guys I have that will actually score points for you this week. I won with 55 last week. Maybe you could do that too. Have some of my guys. I'll take the risk on Nick Chubb and hope that he comes back healthy later. So I think, just be creative, look around for options. The thing too, in fantasy football, every year we get to week 13 and you're like, okay, who are the top 10 running backs to play this week? 6 of them were not drafted. We're playing Devontae Freeman and Adrian Peterson in lineups. If nothing else,
what year is it?
Marshawn Lynch. I'll pick up Marshawn Lynch and Fred Taylor. Maybe he'll who knows? Any old running back, you just grab a name. Barry Sanders, maybe he'll come back around. Just put somebody in your roster, and these guys are all coming back anyways. So, but I'm joking, but there will be running backs who are available. So some team will have another injury, the next Derek Henry, whoever that is, because it's going to happen, and there'll be another waiver spot. So I would say maybe be conservative on waivers. If you're in a league where there's a rolling waiver order or you have, fab, save up a little bit so that when that next Derek Henry happens, you are in position to get the Adrian Peterson or whoever that is. So yeah, that's all what I think that I would be trying, but
I like your trade philosophy. I will admit that I am a little bit more sheepish in terms of the trades, and it sounds like you're a wolf. So you know what? You should probably take Brandon's advice. But no, I mean, it's a matter of comfort thing to me, because then I'm like, I don't want to sound like I'm lowballing or whatever, and I like it to be more of a conversation. But that's also just my relationship with some of my league mates, that it just lends itself to that more. So it would feel weird to just send a cold offer. They'd be like, hey, are you okay? So it obviously just depends on your style. And yeah, I definitely like that idea of being conservative on the waivers. I meant be diligent, not literally pick up everyone. Certainly sure. just making sure you're abreast of that and things that are happening in your league. Cause like I said, there are people that will just drop guys because they need the roster space, and one man's trash, another man's treasure. So anyway, that is my take on that.
All right, we've got another big trade offer here from Mark with the C. So Mark with the C lost Derek Henry. Boy, this is a pandemic. Hey, we're in a pandemic right now. I guess that makes sense. So Mark's running backs now are Damian Harris and James Robinson. He was just offered Austin Eckler and Traquan Smith for Damian Harris and CeeDee Lamb. What do you think? Should he take this trade?
I think you need to trade, as we just spoke about, as the Henry manager. I think that's kind of the only route. First, you have two very passable running backs. I understand that like this was a bad week situation, just because Harris got banged up, so like his stock is a little down. He had a head injury, but I don't think that that's going to be a long-term situation. And then James Robinson obviously missed the game. He's like week to week or day to day, so there's a good chance that he plays in this game. So I mean, there's a good chance if you're stacked at other spots that you could just make do with those guys. But that said, like, I think going back to the trade offer, Traquan Smith, waiver wire caliber receiver. Yeah. So I don't know, like, I'm completely tossing him out of this. So we're looking at Harris and Lamb for Eckler, and I don't like it. I think you're just giving, I love Austin Eckler, and I like the idea of this trade, but I think you're giving up too much. CeeDee Lamb is a low-end wide receiver 1, and Damian Harris has like low-end RB1 potential, I think, just in terms of the workload alone. So I would rather find another receiver on your team to package with Harris for Eckler. I think that would be a more fair trade. This just feels a little too lopsided. Like, I get it, you don't have to win every trade, but this feels too much. I don't know. What do you think?
You have to win every trade, Samantha. We win trades. This is
no. Like the mentality that people
I know.
do. Like, if a trade makes your team better, like it doesn't necessarily need to be a W. I think
Agreed.
There's a little nuance.
You don't have to. It doesn't have to be a slam dunk. Oh my gosh, how did you get that? Just make the trade that helps you, even if it's just a little bit. So here's what I like about this offer. I really went back and forth. I looked into the numbers on these guys. I like, I agree. Traquan Smith, he's not in this trade. Traquan Smith is like the cut from this trade. So this is interesting because we have the Henry owner who we just said Kenzie's as a Henry owner should be trading maybe 2 for 1. 1 for 2 to restock the lineup. Here's a Henry owner possibly trading 2 for 1. So I'm a little concerned. Like you essentially are losing 2 starters in your lineup if you're Mark here. You already lost Henry, and now you're losing Lamb. We don't know how deep the team is, but that is a lot. Like, this is like 2 weeks ago, you do this offer maybe, and you're like, hey, I have Henry and Eckler now. Let's go, bring it on. This seems like maybe not the moment for it. But what I like about the offer, again, back to my trade philosophy, Austin Eckler owner has shown weakness by offering you this deal. Like they offered Eckler for Harris and Lamb. That tells me, if I'm Mark, they want something out of this. Like, you don't just go around offering away your stud running back, Austin Eckler, like the star of your team, unless there's like either maybe like take a look at the roster. Maybe he really needs a receiver badly. If so, then he probably going to want to keep Lamb in the trade, but maybe you can get away with not trading Damian Harris. Is there a third running back on your team? Do you prefer, trading Robinson instead of Harris? Maybe not. Maybe this person insists on it's got to be Harris and Lamb. Okay, well then I don't want Traquan Smith. He goes on the waivers. What about this receiver that you have? So like I think this trade is a no for now, but it's close. It's very close. It's very hard for me to not accept a trade for Austin Eckler. Almost any trade. Like, I love Austin Eckler. I was all over him before the season. I just like Harris and Lamb a lot too. So I think that this is a not yet, but it could be workshopped. And the way that, since this was offered to you, I think that there's room for it. Like, let me ask you this, Samantha. Austin Eckler plus fill in the blank. Who is the receiver that's not Traquan Smith, where you're like, okay, now I will trade Harris and Lamb for Eckler? And like, how good of a receiver would you be looking for if you are Mark?
Like T. Higgins, maybe? I don't know. Something that's like in the wide receiver 3.
Yeah. like a playable
territory.
name, right?
Yes,
Somebody
a
that
playable
actually,
name that you
yeah.
could flex or something when you don't have another spot. Like hopefully they're not necessarily your starter, but it's better than Traquan Smith because there's like, I don't want anything to do with Traquan Smith. So someone better than that, but you're probably not going to get like a wide receiver 2 out of this. I doubt that.
And the thing with, so I trade so much that what I've learned is like, yeah, we've been over this. I have
okay,
problems. This is the trading anonymous meeting, right? I'm Brandon Anderson. So if you are the person, like T. Higgins is not that big of a deal, right? Like he's not a make or break player. If you are on the cusp of a trade and you're the guy that like really wants Damian Harris and CeeDee Lamb, there's a very low chance that T. Higgins is really the reason you're going to walk away from it. If you really want whatever the deal is, T. Higgins is the exact sort of like, well, I really shouldn't have to give him up in this, but I can't walk away from this deal. If you are truly insisting that you need Higgins to get the deal done, which I am, I would never back away, then like it's a great way to get a little something extra on the deal. And so, yeah, I think if this person is willing to give up Eckler already in a close to a good deal, there's a pretty good chance that they have a T. Higgins, whoever that is.
Or like a Jalen Waddle. I don't know, like that range.
Right. A range of not someone where you're like, wait, which team is this guy on again? Traquan Smith. A range of this guy actually gets targets and catches. So yeah, this is why I like to be known as the trade guy, because then people try to offer you deals and then you can like anytime a trade is offered, you can learn something about it and it might set you up for the next trade. So I think that there's something here for Mark. I think it's not this deal, but it's close.
Cool. Well, we are spending a lot of time on these questions, so let us just keep it moving.
Let's go to Matthew here. So Matthew says, what do I do with Kadarius Toney in a league with short benches? Do the Giants use their bye week to figure out ways to get him more involved in offense? It seems like they never look his way when they have other receivers, but he's shown flashes of playmaking that other guys don't have. Side note, Daniel Jones only had 69 air yards last week. Not nice. That's Matthew. Matthew said that. So good job, Matthew. So maybe Toney isn't relevant either way. What do we think about Kadarius Toney?
I think he's like right on the cusp of droppable in a league with short benches. In light of the week 10 bye, I feel like he's a guy that you might just be able to pick up in week 11. It's actually a topic that I discussed on 21 Questions with Dan Harris of Fantasy Pros. Dan was definitely a little bit more bullish on Toney than me, but we both agreed that if you need the space, we don't hate dropping him. He's just been battling injuries. It's the Giants offense. Like, I don't know if Jason Garrett forgot that he had wide receivers in the last game, but it was so frustrating. It's like one catch for the guy. So there's not a single receiver on this team that I'm like excited about starting. Even if Sterling Shepard is healthy, I'm not excited to start him. So I think you're okay to drop him.
Yeah, I'm not in love with Kadarius Toney. I don't think that you just cut him to get rid of him. In terms of what we were just talking about, I think he's like a between a T. Higgins and a Traquan Smith, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So I'm not excited to start him. I don't mind keeping him around, but if you need to cut him to move on to something, I think I agree.
All right. Would you want to just go on to our prize picks?
Let's do it.
Sweet. So next up on the Fantasy Flex is our elite entry segment, where Brandon dives into the Prize Picks app to build some entries. So he's going to identify some markets he likes. You build your own Prize Picks entries, and all of us have a little fun and make some money. So Brandon, hit us with some Week 10 Thursday night plays on Prize Picks.
All right. So yet again, Thursday night, we come into this game again, not knowing who's playing quarterback for one of these teams. Like, what is this with these Thursday night games?
But does it matter in this situation? It almost doesn't.
I don't know. Tua actually was playing kind of decently before. Jacoby Brissett, not so decent. I don't know. I decided I'm going to stay away from Miami. Between not knowing the quarterback and, it being the Dolphins, I'm just going to stay away. So the Dolphins actually are 25th in defensive DVOA. They've been especially bad against the pass. They allowed 281 passing yards, which is third most in the NFL. And they've especially been poor against wide receiver ones, where they have allowed 101.5 yards per game, which is most in the league. And against tight ends, they are fifth worst against tight ends with 8.1 targets per game and 78 yards per game. So we are going all in on Baltimore Ravens passing game. So here's what we got. I had a hard time this week narrowing down. So I have actually 6 options. So I'm going to give them all to you. Listeners at home, you can choose which of the 6 that you want to put in your lineup. We can only do 5 or less if you want to go a little more conservative. But Samantha, I'm going to tell you my 6 and then let you pick which 5, well, which one to exclude, which 5 to keep. So here we go. First one, Lamar Jackson. If we're going to do a passing game, obviously it starts with him. Lamar Jackson over 230.5 passing yards. It's a weird number. He's over that in 7 of 8 games this season. He's averaging 276 yards. Jackson actually isn't scoring a ton of touchdowns. He's on pace for 4,700 passing yards. Like that is not just a running quarterback who occasionally passes. Like that is a huge number. So we're going over the passing yards. And then we're going back to that wide receiver 1 and tight end. So tight end, Mark Andrews. We know that he's kind of the security blanket in this offense. I've got Mark Andrews over 4 catches. He's got 5 catches or more in 6 of the 8 games this season. And it just happens to be all 6 wins. So we need 5 catches from him to go over there. And if we're getting those, I'm going to take Mark Andrews over 48.5 receiving yards. He's been over that in 5 of the 8 games. And he had a 48 and a 44. So we're within like 5 yards of that being 7 out of 8. So especially, again, you got to stack these. We're getting our 4 or 5 catches anyway. Otherwise, we're going to lose anyhow. So if we get our 4 or 5 catches, he's usually around 12 or 13 yards a catch. And that should easily get us to 50, 60 yards and be an over. So we've got 2 Mark Andrews overs, Lamar Jackson over. And of course, the stud, Marquise Brown. This dude, I did not expect this from a Baltimore Ravens receiver. Last 14 games for Brown, 72 catches, 1,020 yards, and 12 touchdowns. And he's got a touchdown in 10 of the 14 games. So I think this is where I had a hard time narrowing it down. I like all the Marquise Brown overs. So over 4 receptions. He's had, in that 14-game stretch, at least 4 catches in 12 of the games. So over 4 catches for there. Over 57.5 yards. He's averaging this season 85 yards a game. So again, I don't know what that number is. Like this defense, Miami's defense getting passed all over. So he's been over that in 6 of the 8, under by 5 yards once. So I definitely like that one. And then of course you can play fantasy points. So over 14.5 fantasy points. He's averaging almost 19 fantasy points in this format and over in 6 of 8 games. So 3 Marquise Brown overs, receiving yards, receptions, and fantasy points. Mark Andrews receptions and receiving yards, and Lamar Jackson passing yards. That's my 6. What do you think? And which one are you going to leave out?
This is difficult because I like the idea of the whole Ravens stack, obviously. I'm going to say that Mark Andrews ones are the ones that I feel significantly less confident about in terms of hitting the over and the receptions or the receiving yards. I might say the receptions is the one that I would leave out, or possibly just leave out both and go with the other 4, because I do really like the Lamar Jackson one and the Marquise Browns one. So yeah, I think I've been a little bit burned by Mark Andrews this year. He's a guy that I thought was a consensus top 6 pick in terms top 6 tight end pick, and just thought that he was going to be that elite guy. And he kind of has just been a little bit disappointing to me. I get that he, to your point, is kind of Lamar Jackson's security blanket, but there are more mouths to feed with Rashad Bateman in that offense now and healthy. And he's a guy that I'm like, I think he has sky high potential. Maybe not Hollywood Brown potential, but close. So yeah, I might leave the Mark Andrews ones out.
All right. Well, I think they're all options. I liked stacking where you can. So if you decide to do Mark Andrews, I think do both the Mark Andrews ones. If you decide to go with Hollywood Brown, do at least 2 of them, maybe all 3. I think as I was going through them, if I want to play 5 of the 6, I might skip the Marquise Brown receptions just because he's such a big play guy. He's been getting a touchdown almost every game. So that gives you a good shot at the fantasy points. And even if he only gets 2 or 3 catches, somehow he can get like a 75-yard catch and go over that number just like that. So I think that would be maybe my last pick, but I like them all. You guys can choose at home. And this way you have options. So that way you don't all pick the same winning entry. We can all win with their own entry this week.
All right. I love it. That'll do it for our elite entry for Thursday Night Football. As a reminder, you can mix and match fantasy points and player props to make your lineups super spicy like Brandon just did. I love that because that's like, you're really like stacking there. Also, Prize Picks markets move, so you will want to be nimble to lock in the best numbers. If you haven't created a Prize Picks account yet, please check the link in our episode description, because Prize Picks has a special offer for Fantasy Flex listeners. They will match your first deposit up to $100. Just click the link in our episode description or visit prizepicks.com and use promo code ACTION10. All right, let us just keep it moving here on our mailbag episode. I think we have 4 questions. Let's do it rapid fire.
Yes. Yeah. These are a little faster. I won't give out more trade treatises anymore. So next one is from Luke with one of your favorites, a Shanahan running back. Does Elijah Mitchell have the 49ers backfield locked up? I haven't forgotten what Jeff Wilson did in the fantasy playoffs last year and was hoping he could get back to that once healthy. What do you think about Eli Mitchell?
I do think he has this backfield locked up, because apparently I have a short memory and I am ready to get hurt by another Kyle Shanahan running back. But in all seriousness, like it just really does feel like he is the guy, and it's not unprecedented for Shanahan to commit to a bell cow running back. We saw him do it with Raheem Mostert when he was healthy in certain situations. Mitchell has seen no fewer than 61% of the snaps this year and is far more involved than any other running back in this offense. Like Trey Sermon is just like sitting on his couch or something. And he's coming off of a relatively quiet week last week, in which he saw 8 carries for 36 yards, though no other running back logged more than 1 carry. So it's not an impressive number, but it's 8 times more than anyone else. And he also tacked on 5 catches for 43 yards. So that is certainly nice. If I'm the Mitchell manager, I'm just not scared of Jeff Wilson. I think he can come back and be in a complementary role, but I'm not concerned about Mitchell. I think he's a guy that is definitely an RB2 rest of season.
Yeah, I like Elijah Mitchell. He was a guy I was high on coming into the season just as a possible sleeper. He fits the offense. When he's been healthy, he's been the guy. So I think we just have to trust that, it seems like Shanahan actually found something maybe he likes. We'll see, but I think he has a chance to be like a top 10 running back down the stretch.
I think it's like when you're dating and you go on, like when you're dating someone kind of somewhat seriously and you like pause your matches on Hinge. So like you're pausing your match, like that's what he is in terms of commitment. You're not necessarily like deleting the app, but I think he's almost there with Elijah Mitchell. So he has commitment issues, I think.
Yeah. Jeff Wilson is probably a cat guy too. So you may as well just pause. Like, we're not so worried about Jeff. All right. Let's go to Jason. Jason says, with the addition of Von Miller, are the Rams a must-start defense special teams for the rest of the season? What do you think?
I just kind of reject the premise that there are DSTs that are must starts every single week. Like you could argue maybe the Bills and the Cardinals, but the list is really, really lean. And I pretty much always stream. I don't think I've ever drafted a defense that like I kept the whole season or even like probably longer than 5 weeks. Miller's going to be a nice addition to the Rams pass rush, and they're already a good defense, but they haven't exactly been consistent. They've only posted a finish inside the top 5 once this year and have 4 weeks outside the top 12. They were lit up against the Cardinals, which kind of tells you like it can just happen. Like it's a bad matchup. They had 37 points scored against them. So that gave you -1 fantasy points. It would have been better if you had started the Samantha DST that week. And they're going to have to play them again in week 14. So that kind of just wipes out the whole like must start thing for me. They face Green Bay this week, Seattle in week 15, the Vikings in week 16, and the Ravens in week 17. None of those matchups are easy. Von Miller is a nice addition, but I don't think there are really any defenses that I'm going to say are really must starts. There's no like the Patriots that one year, like where they were ridiculous. I just feel like that's such an anomaly. And I don't think that we are not in a situation like that with the Rams.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of our last question, we are not pausing the dating app on the defense this year. We're just going to just keep on coming through. We'll swipe whenever we need to. Yeah, I like the Rams. They've got a lot of good options here. They're definitely playable, but it is a really tough schedule. And I agree. My example, I was going to say, as someone that lives in the Chicago area, like once every 4 years, the Bears become an absolute must start every week fantasy defense. Thankfully, that is not this year because those years are very miserable to live around here as a Vikings fan. So there are occasional must-start defenses. I don't think there is one this year. It's definitely not the Rams. So I think it's a good defense. I'd keep them around if you can, but definitely not a must-start, especially in a lot of these tricky matchups coming up. All right. From Kyle. Kyle wants to know, is Dallas Goedert droppable? He's got Dawson Knox and can stream if necessary?
No, I don't think he's droppable. I'm hanging on to him. I understand the impulse given the Eagles' offensive struggles, but I think he remains a top 12 tight end rest of season. And you don't know how Knox is going to be once he comes back. And just given the kind of volatility of the tight end position, I don't know that there are guys on the waiver wire that I feel comfortable starting over Goddard or anything like that. So I don't know. I really do like Knox. And he's been fantastic in the games that he's played. I'm just not willing to cut bait on Goddard. He is tight end 13 and a half PPR on a per game basis. So it's not fantastic. And I did think he was going to be a little bit better with Zach Ertz gone. There are issues in that offense, like I alluded to, but I still think he has really good upside.
So I don't have a strong opinion on these two. Here's my question. Let's say that Kyle only has one roster spot. He's doing a trade. He needs to clear out a roster spot or something. And assume Dawson Knox is healthy for this. Would you keep Dawson or Dallas? Like which of those two would you keep if you only can keep one of them and like start them the rest of the year?
I'd probably go with Dallas Goedert. I think he is more consistent, and we've seen it happen for like in the past. He's been a fantasy producer when healthy. So I think I would probably go with him, but it's close. Like we're on that fringe. We're on that tight end 12, tight end 13.
Yeah. And that's where it's nice maybe to have both, because you can kind of play the matchup and you keep them both around. So it certainly doesn't sound like we should be recommending that Goddard gets cut. All right. Last one from Pete, who I can only assume is Ryan, because we haven't had any Ryans or even close to Ryan yet. So Pete, Ryan, Pete. It's one of those double first name guys. All right.
I already like him. I already like this guy, right? Ryan Pete.
Right. Yeah. Say hello to your grandmother, Ryan Pete. What should I do with Courtland Sutton? Is it time to send him to the wire for someone like Christian Kirk?
This is a tough one. I'm honestly going to say it's like a little bit of a toss up for me. I think better days are ahead for Sutton. He had a really tough game, but as predicted, he definitely got a lot of Trayvon Diggs last week and was an afterthought, caught just one pass for 9 yards. He also now has to compete with Jerry Jeudy and possibly Noah Fant for targets moving forward. I would say Sutton has the better week 10 matchup slightly against the Eagles versus Kirk, who faces my Panthers, though neither matchup is particularly easy. Carolina has been pretty good against the pass. They've got Stephon Gilmore now, are allowing the second fewest passing yards per game and fifth fewest fantasy points to wide receivers this year. I don't know. Kirk would be the preferred start if it looks so like DeAndre Hopkins is going to miss another week. I'm really actually not up to date on his health, but that was a surprising scratch last week. Not necessarily surprising, but he's a guy that like didn't need, like in the past would not practice at all in the week and would still start the game and still find the touch, still find the end zone twice. So it was kind of surprising to see him sit out. Rest of season, like I said, I think these guys are kind of a wash. Like they have crowded depth charts. Maybe you want Kirk just because it's exposure in a better offense, but he also has better competition, if that makes sense. So I don't know, take your pick your poison.
Yeah, I think I like Sutton a little better here. I don't feel like, in terms of our PhD, I would not put Sutton in a drop spot here. Like maybe he moves to hold for now. Maybe we're not quite confident enough, but he's a very talented receiver. Like if I'm just thinking like, fantasy football is not always about talent. It has to be opportunity. You got to get the targets and all of that, but talent does matter. And Courtland Sutton is a very talented player. I think way more talented than Christian Kirk or probably the other options that you might find on the waiver wire. So Denver's offense has been up and down, but they've been all right. Teddy actually has passed all right. I don't mind keeping him around. We'll see between him and Jeudy who ends up kind of emerging as the decent option from week to week. I think it might just end up being unpredictable, but yeah, I don't know. Christian Kirk is definitely going to be unpredictable, and eventually Hopkins will be back. Even this week, even if Hopkins is out, Kyler might be out. So then I'm not really like, are you so excited about Colt McCoy throwing to like, I'd rather start Stephon Gilmore or someone on Carolina's defense, the more likely target for Colt McCoy. So yeah, I would keep Courtland Sutton. He doesn't necessarily have to be a play, but he's in my head. There's just, I said this about Odell Beckham Jr. a few weeks ago, and obviously we're waiting to find out where he goes. Maybe by the time you listen, you'll know, but there's just in my head a line of demarcation of just you're too talented to cut. And that was Odell Beckham. And I think that's Cortland Sutton for me. Christian Kirk is not above that line. Christian Kirk can go on the waiver wire and play with his friends. Sutton, I'm going to keep around because I think he's going to have a good game again at some point.
I know it's an interesting, I guess, like age-old fantasy problem where Kirk has actually just produced a lot this season. And you keep saying like, not you, the royal you, the fantasy community doesn't want to believe in him because he's just not like the type of guy that we want to believe in. Like we want the sexy name. We want like Rashad Bateman. We want Rondell Moore. But I mean, he's a guy that has definitely put up a lot of numbers. This offense has been good. But to your point, don't know about the quarterback situation. Hopefully Kyler does play this week. So like I said, I don't really have a strong opinion. I think I would lean Sutton, but it's really close. So anyway, sorry.
It's only fair that we end on Christian Kirk, who is yet another first name double. Like Kirk Christian, we're definitely not signing him. We did not want Kirk Christian on this team. Christian Kirk, he could be fine. At least we got the right name combo for him. But this was a double first name episode if we ever had one.
Kirk Christian just sounds like a guy that wears like socks with sandals and
absolutely.
I don't know. Anyway, yes, this will close out our mailbag episode of all first name, last name, double first name guys. As a reminder, Sean Kerner and Chris Raybon are here on the Fantasy Flex every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, giving you guys all the DFS waiver wire and rankings info to help you dominate your fantasy leagues. I will be back next Tuesday with another round of 21 questions with our special guest, Brad Evans, and next Thursday with another mailbag episode. So don't forget, please send us any mailbag questions to mailbag@actionnetwork.com. Thanks again for listening. Please rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts. Download us wherever you like to listen, and we will see you next time on the Fantasy Flex presented by PrizePicks. Peace out, y'all.